Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, Andres Pop Culture Guy. Here's the latest Andres Pop Culture Retrospective slash review is on two Christopher Nolan films, The Prestige for his 20th anniversary, plus Interstellar, yeah, leading up to Christopher Nolan's birthday, because recently his new 13th film, The Odyssey, just recently released. Fantastic movie. I'll probably review The Odyssey as well in this. So it could be three Christopher Nolan films to review, which is awesome. So yeah, love Christopher Nolan. You guys know that. I'm a big fan of his work. Behind Stanley Kubrick. And yeah, and he's a terrific actor. So yeah, let's get into today's review. First, we're taking a look, excuse me, at one of Christopher Nolan's most fascinating and underrated films, The Prestige, released in 2006, starring Hugh Jackman, Christian Bale, Michael Caine, Scarlett Johansson, Rebecca Hall, and David Bowie plays Tesla. So The Prestige is a psychological thriller about two rival musicians who become consumed by their obsession with defeating each other. This is a movie about magic, mystery, ambition, sacrifice, and most importantly, revenge. It's also the kind of movie that gets better the more times you watch it, which is kind of true for me. When first saw it, after the late great David Bowie passed away, I needed to see some of his work, and the first thing I was able to see was The Prestige. And let me say right now, it gets better in repeat viewings. The Prestige. So let's talk about The Prestige. So yeah, the story follows Robert Anger, right, played by Hugh Jackman, and then Alfred Borman, played by Christian Bale. At the beginning of the film, they're two art friends, follow assistants working alongside the musician Cutter, played by Michael Caine. But after a tragic accident, their relationship completely falls apart. From that point forward, Angier, how they sound. Angier and Borden become bitter rivals over the course of the film. Each one is determined to become the greatest musician in the world, and more importantly, each one wants to discover the other's secrets. What makes the Prestige so compelling is the way Christopher Nolan structures their story. The film is told through multiple timelines and perspectives, which is very unique. And the audience is constantly being asked to pay attention to every little detail. The movie itself is structured like a magic trick, with the three stages being the pledge, the turn, and the prestige. Very true. And just like a great magic trick, the Prestige encouraged you to look in one direction while the truth is hiding somewhere else. Hugh Jackman gives one of his best dramatic performances as Robert Edgier. Edgier starts as a talented musician, but his obsession with defeating Bourne slowly consumes him. Hugh Jackman does an excellent job showing how Edgier's desires for revenge changes him as the story progresses. Really well done. And then you got Christian Bale, who is also fantastic as Afrin. His name is Afro. That's funny. Borden. Borden is much more a mysterious character. Bale gives him a quite intensity that makes him constantly question what he's thinking. Then you got Michael Caine, as always, is another highlight as Carter. He provides some of the film's emotional um, grounding while also helping explain the mechanics behind the magic. Then we have David Bowie as Nikola Tesla. It's a relatively small role, but Bowie brings the strange and memorable performance to the film. Visually, the Prestige has that classic sort of atmosphere, very realistic and very earthly tones. Very, not over the top kind of visuals, but the movie feels dark, mysterious, and almost gothic at times. The Victorian era setting is beautifully recreated. The cinematography makes the world of the stage magic film both exciting and dangerous. But what I think makes the Prestige truly special is the explosion or the deep dive of obsession. Angier and Bourne are willing to sacrifice almost everything in their lives to become the better musician. Their rivalry becomes so intense that they stop thinking about the consequences of their actions. The film asks the fascinating question: How much are you willing to sacrifice to achieve greatness? And that's what the movie is so powerful. This isn't really about a story about two musicians trying to entertain the audience. It's a story about two men who become prisoners, who becomes prisoners of their own obsession. So, okay, everyone, this is where we're going to get into a mixed spoils for the Prestige because it's a lot. There's a lot of twists and turns for this. If you haven't seen the movie yet, I highly recommend stopping here and watching it first. You've been warned. So let me get into now the big twist. Let's talk about the ending. Really, one of the biggest twists in the Prestige is the revelation that Afrin Warren isn't actually one person. They are two identical twin brothers, crazy, who have been living their entire lives as one person. One brother is Afron Born, while the other is Fallon. They completely sacrifice their individual identities to maintain the illusion that they are one position. This explains so many mysteries around um, Borden throughout the film. It explains why Borden sometimes behaves differently from other times. It explains his relationship with Sarah, why she constantly feels something is wrong, and it explains how he's able to perform the famous transporting man trick, which, funny enough, it was for sure by Cutter by Michael Caine saying that it could be a double, which is was kind of true, but it was more of like a identical brother that was the trick. The sequel was simple, but the sacrifice was enormous. The two brothers are willing to give up their individual lives to maintain the greatest man, and that's the tragedy of the Prestige. Neither of them really wins. Bourne loses his brother, and eventually faces execution, where Angier gets the success and fame he desperately wanted, but he loses his humanity and ultimately dies. The rivalry between these two men destroys everything around them, and the final revelation becomes the entire movie even more interesting because, in a strange way, both men were right about the other. Bourne's secret was that he was actually two people. Then Angier's secret was that he was willing to become many people. The two musicians were constantly trying to figure out how the other one performed the trick, but they're also completely misunderstanding what the other was willing to sacrifice. And that's what makes the ending so brilliant. So, final thoughts on just wrapping up the Prestige. Happy 25th anniversary, Prestige. Overall, The Prestige is one of Christopher Nolan's most intelligent and rewatchable films. The performances from Hugh Jackman, Christian Bale are excellent. The story is incredible. Well, Memento, I have to say, up there. The clues are right there in front of you, but the movie tells you exactly what is happening, but you're so focused on trying to figure out the mystery that you don't always recognize the truth. The So that's why The Prestige gets better every rewatch. The first time you watch it, you're trying to figure out the secret. But then the second time, you're watching to see how the movie fooled you. And the third time, you're watching. My final rating for the Prestige is I give it 4 out of 5 stars. This is an incredible, well-crafted psychological thriller with fantastic performances and unforgettable story. One of the best endings in Christopher Nolan's filmography. If you haven't seen The Prestige, I highly recommend checking it out. If you've already seen it, let me know in the comments which musician you think it was more obsessed, Robert Angier or Borman. What do you think of the ending? Thank you so much for watching and listening to this respective slash review on the 20th anniversary of The Prestige. If you do enjoy this review, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more movie reviews and pop culture content. I'm Andreas, Pop Culture Guy. I will see you in the next video. Ciao. Hello, everyone. This is Andreas Pop Culture Guy. Welcome to my channel. This is the latest Andreas Pop Culture Retrospective slash review. This is the Christopher Nolan pod. So the second review you're seeing here is Interstellar, the 2014 film. His ambitious and emotional, powerful science fiction epic, directed by Christopher Nolan as himself, starring Matthew McConaughey, Anne Hathaway, Jessica Chastain, Michael Caine, and Mackenzie Boy. The film combines breathtaking visuals, complex scientific concepts, and a deeply personal story about love, family, sacrifice, and the humanity survival. Now, the story takes place in the future where Earth is suffering from environmental disasters and humanity is facing the possibility of extinction. Former NASA pilot Joshua Cooper, played by Matthew McConaughey, is recruited for a dangerous mission through a mysterious wormhole near Saturn. His goal is to travel across the galaxy and search for a new home for humanity. Now, Cooper leaves behind his children, including his young daughter Murphy, in the hope that he can save them and the rest of the human race. However, the emotional cause of leaving his family becomes one of the film's central themes. One of the great strengths of the Stellar is Matthew McConaughey's performance as Cooper. He's a brilliant pilot and engineer, but he's also a father who desperately wants to return home to his children. McConaughey brings an incredible amount of emotion to the role, especially during the film's most heartbreaking moments, which is crazy. Uh, the relationship between Cooper and Murphy's is the emotional heart of the movie. Their bond gives the massive science fiction story a personal foundation. Even though Cooper travels millions of miles away from Earth, his connection with his daughter remains the driving force behind his journey. The film explores the fascinating scientific concepts, including wormholes, black holes, related to relativity, and then time dilation, and higher dimensions. While some of the design is complex, Christopher Nolan presents these ideas in a way that makes them visually exciting and dramatically important to the story. Visual effects are obviously spectacular. It makes a lot of sense why the effects were won for the Academy Award back in 2014. The deprecation, I mean, first the deprecation, the what was the word? The uh, the depiction of the wormhole of this movie has been the wormhole that a lot of movies are used. I mean, like recently, Fantastic Four First Steps used the type of wormhole that's literally from Interstellar, which is crazy, and they had like a similar sequence. And the black hole known as Gargantua is especially impressive. The film's space sequence feels enormous and awe-inspiring, while the planets visited by the crew each have their own unique atmosphere and sense of danger. Really cool. Then you got Hans Zimmer's musical score is another major highlight. The powerful organ-based soundtrack gives the movie almost spiritual quality and perfectly complements the scale of the story. I mean, the my favorite part was the docking sequence where after surprisingly Matt Damon's cameo where he was trying to take their ship. That's one of the best sequences of all time, and that music is especially affected during the film's most emotional and suspenseful sequence. Incredible. And then you get the supporting cast is also excellent. I mean, Anne Hathaway brings determination and intelligence to um, Ib- Emily Brand, while Jessica Chastain delivers a strong performance as the adult Murphy. Then you got Michael Caine that as the emotional weight as Professor Brand. And the film also features memorable performances from Matt Damon that I just brought up his cameo here and Casey Affleck. What makes Interstellar stand out is the way it balances its enormous science fiction concepts with a deeply human story. At the time, I didn't get the grasp of the movie, but now I understand its core. This movie is about the relationship between parents and children. It's about the sacrifice we make for the people we love and the hope that humanity can survive even when everything seems impossible. The film's exploration of time is perfectly powerful because the effects, the relativity Cooper experienced time differently from his children. While he may only experience a relatively short amount of time during his journey, decades pass on Earth. This creates some of the movie's most heartbreaking moments. I mean, Cooper isn't simply trying to save humanity, he's trying to get back his family before it's too late. The third act is where it still becomes especially ambitious. I mean, Cooper enters a black hole, finds himself inside this mysterious five-dimensional structure known as the Tesseract. Not that Tesseract from the MCU, or revealed to be the Space Stone, but the Tesseract in this movie. From there, he realized that he could communicate with Murphy across time by manipulating gravity. The revelation that mysterious gravitational signals that helped Cooper's mission were actually being sent by Cooper himself creates a fascinating close loop element to the story. Now, the movie ultimately suggests that love can transcend time and space. While this idea may be controversial for the last what, like 10 or 13 years, or yeah, 13 years for some viewers. I mean, I think it works because the emotional core of the film always been Cooper and Murphy's relation. I mean, I get that Miss Brand brought that dialogue, but what are you gonna say? And then if there's one criticism is that Interstellar can sometimes be heavily complicated and emotionally heavy. The film asks the audience to understand a lot of scientific concepts while also following several different storylines and time periods. Some of the dialogue can also feel overly explanatory or ex exposition most of the time. But however, these issues don't take away the overall experience I have for the film. Interstellar is a film that demands your attention and it worth you for giving it. It's visually stunning. I mean, emotionally moving and intellectual ambitious, filled with unforgettable moments, I'd say. Overall, I think Interstellar is one of Christopher Nolan's greatest films and one of the most ambitious and one of the most ambitious science fiction movies of the 21st century. It's a combination of spectacular visuals, Hans Zimmer's incredible score, complex scientific ideas, and its emotional story about father and daughter makes it truly a memorable cinematic experience. Now, the rating, I definitely will give this a 5 out of 5. Fantastic. Interstellar is a breathtaking science fiction masterpiece that reminds us that even when humanity reaches for the stars, the most powerful force in the universe may still be the love we have for the people waiting for us back home. So, everyone, hope you enjoyed the Interstellar review. This is the second Nolan film. So, yeah, thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed. Hit that subscribe button. Uh, Yeah, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more movie reviews and pop culture content. I'm Andres Pop Culture Guy. I will see you in the next video. Bye. Hello, everyone. This is Andreas Pop Culture Guy. Here's the third and final Christopher Nolan movie review I have here. This is his latest and new movie, the 13th film, the Odyssey, the 2026 epic fantasy film. Of course, this is directed by Christopher Nolan himself. His ambitious, visually spectacle adaptation of the Homer's legendary epic poem, starring Matt Damon, Tom Holland, and Hathaway, Robert Pattinson, Zendaya, and Lupio Ligando, and John Barfel, wrapping up the other massive ensemble cast that Nolan has brought together. The film takes the audience on an epic journey filled with gods, monsters, battles, betrayal, and the universe, or the year, yeah, universe desire to return home. How poetic. At nearly 3 hours long, the Odyssey is exactly the kind of large-scale cinematic event that Christopher Nolan has become known for. The film follows Aeneas, played by Matt Damon. Hopefully, I say that right. The king of Athesa, who is desperately trying to return home after the Trojan War. However, his journey across the um, um, across the Mediterranean becomes a dangerous adventure filled with mythical creatures, supernatural forces, and obstacles that test his courage, intelligence, and loyalty. What ultimately stands out about the Odyssey is its enormous scale. Christopher Nolan has created a world that feels ancient, mysterious, and incredible. Im- impressive or impressive. Uh, Hopefully, I'm saying that right. Now, the film's landscapes, battleships, and mythical creatures are presented with a sense of physical that makes the journey feel tangible. The use of the large format cinematography, particularly the IMAX cameras and 70 millimeter, is particularly impressive. This is the movie that definitely benefited noticeably from being experienced on the biggest screen possible. I agree on that part. The film's visual ambition is one of the greatest strengths, from the terrifying encounter of the Cyclops to the strange and dangerous worlds of Search. Nolan creates set pieces that feel genuine cinematic events. The movie constantly moves between intimate character moments and enormous spectacles, giving the audience a sense of both scale and danger. Matt Damon gives strong performances as the lead for this film, rather than portraying him simply as an unstoppable action hero. At DC's, Damon presents Odysseus as a complicated man who is exhausted by war, desperate to return his family. His journey is not simply about surviving monsters or mythical obstacles; it's about finding his way back to the people he loves. The emotional core of the film comes from Odysseus' relationship with his wife Penelope, played by Anne Hathaway, and his son Telem Mess. Crazy these things is hard to pronounce. Played by Tom Holland, their separation gives the epic adventure a personal, emotional foundation, like some of other Nolan films like Interstellar, as I review. The movie is ultimately about the meaning of home. Odysseus spends years traveling through an unpredictable and dangerous world, but everything he does is moved by the hope of returning to his home. That gives the film the emotional center that connects the massive mythology to something deeply human. The supporting cast is filled with recognizable stars. I mean, several performers to highlight are the standout. Robert Pattinson brings the intensity and theatrical energy to Aeneas, while the film's characters allow actors like Samantha Moore to embrace some of the movie's strangest and most memorable moments, like Sirs, and one of the film's most impressive sequences involves the Cyclops, which demonstrates Nolan's ability to turn ancient mythology into a thrilling monster movie entertainment. That sequence was terrifying, exciting, and occasionally even darkly funny. Of course, I wrote the Sirs. The Sirs sequence is another highlight. I mean, the movie this film becomes more surreal, unpredictable as Aziz and his men encounter the powerful enchantress. This moment shows Nolan stepping outside of the more grounded filmmaking style and more of some of his previous movies and embracing the full fantasy potential of Homer's story. Then we got the music score. Ludwig Göransson's plays a major role in the film's atmosphere. The music gives the journey a powerful sense of scale, while helping create the feeling that as is traveling through the world controlled by forces far greater than himself. But I gotta say, I think his score here is not as strong as Oppenheimer or Black Panther or even this year's uh, the Mandalorian Grogu. This was an okay score, but it was still good and it plays well for the film, I have to say. And narratively, I think Odyssey is another ambition that Nolan has created. I mean, Christopher Nolan has incorporated his own interest in non-linear storytelling into the Homer's classic tale, um, but not as fully as I was expecting. There still is the structure doesn't allows. Doesn't always follow the journey in a straightforward canonical order. This is true. This approach can be challenging at times, but it also gives the film an initial layer of history and encourage the audience to piece together the larger story. However, this is where the movie may divide the audience. I haven't read the Homer clone, so I'm completely fine what Nolan did here. But for some, I'll definitely address this. Yes, with so much story to tell, so many characters to introduce, some of the emotional relationships don't always receive so much development as they deserve. The films is frankly spectacular, but there are moments when the sheer scale of the production makes it difficult to make it difficult for the quieter character moments to have the same impact. This is especially noticeable in the film's family relationship. The story is ultimately about Aziz wanting to return home, but the enormous scope of the adventure sometimes overshadows the promise of snakes. This is where Interstellar exceeds well. Still, the film's strengths far outweigh its weaknesses, and I gotta say, the Odyssey is an incredible cinematic achievement. It takes one of the oldest stories in Western literature and transforms it into a modern blockbuster without losing its fundamental themes of ritual tell, honor, loyalty, temptation, courage, betrayal, sacrifice, and the search for home. What makes this movie particularly interesting is how it fits into Nolan's filmography, as I say before. Like Inception, it explores the worlds governed by strange rules. Like Interstellar, I say before, it focuses on the power of human connection across enormous distance. Like Dunkirk, it examines survival and determination to make it home. And like Oppenheimer is a film about individuals whose choices have consequences far beyond themselves. But the Odyssey also feels different from Nolan's previous work because it allows him to fully embrace mythology and fantasy. Which is a rare thing for Nolan to do. The result is the film that is simultaneously ancient and modern, a story that has been told for thousands of years, but still feels relevant because of the central question remains universal. What what could you be willing to endure to return home to the people you love? Overall, the Odyssey is a magnificent cinematic spectacle with breathtaking visuals, impressive performances, thrilling action, and an extraordinary sense of scale. While its enormous vision occasionally comes at the expense of the emotional uh, intimacy, Christopher Nolan has delivered a film that feels designed to be experienced in the theater. This is not simply another blockbuster; it is a cinematic event. So my rating for this one, I'm definitely going to give it a 5 out of 5. Definitely a type 5 tier Christopher Nolan film. I think definitely prefer this over Oppenheimer. I'll say I'll definitely place Oppenheimer to 4, and then this will be 3. Uh, if I redo my ranking of the Christopher Nolan films now that we got more movies now, 13 movies. Yeah, so yep, my final, so 5 out of 5, highly recommended. Please see it on the big screen. Final verdict: The Odyssey is a breathtaking mono epic that brings one of the humanity's greatest stories to life on an enormous scale. And Christopher Nolan's vision may not always be emotionally intimate, but it comes through the spectacle, ambition, and pure cinematic craftsmanship. The Odyssey is an unforgettable journey worth taking. So thank you everyone for joining the Christopher Nolan pod. I hope you guys enjoyed the 3 movie reviews I have laid out here. So just for running down here, this is the Prestige for its 20th anniversary. You got Interstellar, and then you got the Odyssey here. So hope you enjoyed these reviews. Gonna release it when I release it, for not further ado, please check out my other content in the channel. So yeah, if you enjoyed the view, don't forget to like it, subscribe it, hit that notification bell for more movie reviews and pop culture content. I'm Andreas Pop Culture Guy. I will see you in the next video or content. Ciao and have a nice week, guys. Bye.